Welcome back as we continue our wonderful journey in core mathematics. My name is Nana Yawedu, and you can call me Sir Nana. In our previous lesson, we've considered reference for angles. I mentioned that for reference for angles, we are just looking at things around us that we can relate to it when we are talking about angles. Things like the handspan, like opening the door. Remember to share this video, like the video, subscribe to my YouTube channel, comment at the comment section if you find anything interesting or you have any problem that you want us to discuss. And remember as well to click on the notification bell so that you'll be abreast with every video I put out here. In this lesson, we want to consider how we can measure and how we can bisect angles. And specifically, we'll be considering how we can measure angles using a protractor. So remember to get your protractor, get your pencil, get your compass, so that you can have your jotter on the side and take notes, so that it will help you when you are revising. Now let's consider what a typical protractor looks like. So this is a typical protractor. Basically, a protractor has the ends or the flat ends, and it moves from the 0 degree, it's measured in degrees, so it's from the 0 degree, moves to the 10 degree, to 20, until it gets to the 180 degree mark. The reason is because when you have an angle on a straight line, it adds up to 180 degree. And you could also see that it also has from 0 on the other side to 10 to 20 to 30 to 40, 50, 60, until it gets to the 180 degree mark. Right, so you can have this type of protractor, or this protractor as well, where you see the 0 degree, you see the 10 degree, 20 degree, 30 degree, and this move all the way to the 180 degree here. Or on the other hand, we have the 0 degree, 10 degree, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, moving all the way to the 180 degree mark. So this is a typical protractor. So now that you've taken your protractor, let's look at how we can measure angles. So basically, this is our protractor on the side here. So we have our protractor here. So basically, this is a protractor that we use when we are measuring angles. And we want to measure the angle here. So let's actually label this angle as angle from A to B to C, right? And we know that angles are formed when rays of lines meet at a point. So this is a point where we want to measure. So we want to measure the inside angle. So we'll pick our protractor and move it. We want to put it exactly on the B, right? And let it be on the intersection of the B, of the C, and then the B and the A. And then we'll read from the 0. So we see our 0 right here. See our 0 here. So we'll read from the 0 here. And then we realize that it moves to the 10. All the way, we realize that the angle here is on the 90, right? The angle here is exactly on the 90. So we'll read this as the 90 degree angle, right? We'll read this as a 90 degree angle. So the angle from A to B to C is 90 degree, and we will write it as angle. This is a symbol for angle. So angle ABC is equal to 90 degree. Remember that the angle is always the one that is written in the middle. So our angle is the angle at B. So angle ABC is the angle 90 degrees. So now let's look at another angle that we want to read. So we have another angle here, and we want to read that angle. So we'll pick our protractor and move it to where the angle is, and we want to turn the protractor to the side where we can actually have it on the angle. So we'll move it right on the side, ensure we turn it so that the line is exactly on the angle, right? So we have it here. Now let's turn it a little bit. Good. So we want to read this angle. So we see from the 0 degrees here, we have our 10 degrees, we have our 20, we have our 30, we have our 40, we have our 50, we have our 60, we have our 70, and then we have our 80, right? And the line is some smaller scales away from the 80. So we want to read the number of smaller scales. So we have 1, 2, 3 smaller scales away from the 80. So it means it's on the 83-degree mark, right? So if you want to write or read this angle, we'll read the angle as an angle that is 83 degrees. So the angle here will be 83 degrees. So if we label this as X, as Y, and as Z, then we will say that angle XYZ is equal to 83 degrees. So the angle at Y, which is in the middle, right, is 83 degrees. So I believe that you now know how you can measure angles. Draw some lines yourself and try and measure them, and then get familiarized with how you can measure angles. Now let's consider how we can bisect angles. So we want to use this example here. So we'll label this as our A, and then we have our B, and then we have our C. So we want to bisect angle. So we want to bisect angle ABC. So it means that the bisection must be done at angle B, right? So to bisect the angle, all you need to do is to have your compass. So pick your compass, open your compass wide, and ensure that you put one end of the compass here, right, and then the other end here, and draw a line or draw a curve, an arc to touch two sides. So we are dealing with these two sides. So we stand on one side and draw a curve to touch the two sides of the angle. Now that you've drawn a curve, you open your compass wide, stand on one side, and then using the same radius that you use, or the same opening that you use, just construct an arc at one end. Don't change the radius. Then come and stand at the other end, and then you bisect the arc, and then you pick your ruler, and then ensure that you draw a line from the center, which is B, to pass through the center of the constructed lines or arcs. Very good. So we pick our pencil and ensure we draw the line through. So we put it, make sure you put it exactly on the B and on the intersection, right? So yours will be more with a physical ruler, so it should be easier for you. Now we put it here, then ensure that it's on the intersection here, right here. Then once we have it on the side and then on the intersection, you draw a line to pass through the intersection. Because you are using a physical ruler, you should get a very accurate one. So what you have done here is that you have divided this angle into two equal parts. So let's assume if this angle is A degrees, this angle will also be A degrees, right? So bisection divides an angle into two equal parts. Let's remember that once we engage in bisection, it divides an angle into two equal parts. So if this is 40 degrees, this side will also be what? 40 degrees. It would have been divided into two equal parts. Now let's consider some other bisections here. So for instance, we have the angle here. Let's assume the angle here is X, and then let's say this is V and this is Y. So we want to bisect angle X, V, and Y. So angle at V. So as we are saying, you stand at one end and then open your compass and construct an arc. And then standing at the ends, which is the A and the B, we would open our compass and then construct an arc at one end and then construct another arc. And then you draw a line from V to pass through the intersection of the arcs. Then you are able to divide this into two equal parts. So if this side is X degrees, this will be what? X degrees, right? So draw a line and then draw another line to intersect. Let it form an angle and then try and bisect it, and let's see what you would get. So basically in this lesson, we have considered how we can measure angles and how we can bisect angles. So we've gone through the process using the protractor to be able to measure angles. Ensure that you also practice them more And don't forget to share this video, like this video, comment, and subscribe to my YouTube channel. In our next lesson, we'll be looking at types of angles. See you in the next lesson.